Hey, everybody, this is Jonathan Ogden, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
Hey, Bruin fans, this is David Singleton, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show. Go Bruins.
Hey, this is Wayne Cook, and you're listening to What's Bruin Show.
Hey, guys, it's Chris Johnson, UCLA national champion. I need y'all to listen to the What's Bruin Show. These dudes are off the hook.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Hello and welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Merrifield, and I'm joined by my good buddy Mike Regalado here in studio for the first time in many, many moons. Mike, well, I don't know how many moons it was, but at least a few weeks. Mike?
Big applause, Big Mike.
We've been busy.
Here he is. And last week, you and Jamaal, my good man from West Coast Bias, all about the West Coast
Well, you're
Bias.
just all about the West Coast bias. You don't like the East Coast.
You covered for me doing a pre-NCAA tournament pod because I was getting ready to go to the great state of Texas and go have some barbecue and watch the Grizzlies
taking names. Yeah.
Get what? Yeah, personally, Mike. Personally, I don't think I've ever been better. Like I was on it, right? I was just the man. But the Grizzlies lost 30-something to nothing.
Oh,
Grizzlies not great. We're gonna be better in our next game, I guarantee it. But I was undefeated this weekend, and I had barbecue. I'll talk about that and what's brewing. But anyways, I remain undefeated. And I will not be defeated. But here we go. It's the What's Bruin Show, the What's Bruin Show Network. Thank you for your support. You can pay your $2 if you want.
$2.
And we appreciate those of you that do. But, Mike, it's a big show today because we just did 45 minutes with Dave Marcus, the voice of women's hoops. And that's great. And that will be the bulk of our women's basketball talk, which will be coming to you in just a couple minutes. But we're also going to talk a little bit about the men's team, which, they faded into oblivion another year in a row, this time in the second round. And, shit like that happens sometimes.
whackity smackity doo.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, it is what it is. We got the women to lean on right now, and hopefully they take us all the way to, at worst, a championship game and at best, an NCAA title. That'd be awesome. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. If you have any input for the show, whatsbruinshow@gmail.com, at What's Bruin Show on Twitter, and the hotline, 805-399-4WBS.
Suckerina Troy.
Suckerina Troy. SC got their asses kicked by SC.
Yeah, they did.
It's wonderful.
Wow.
I was definitely rooting for SC in that game. They lost by like 9,000 points. F you guys.
I love the fact that SC won
Although they're gonna be very
and
good
beat
next year.
SC.
It was great.
Yeah, take that SC and go SC. Or as the Godfather would say, the Gamecocks are USC, the Trojans are SC.
Hey, go Cox. That's all I have to say about that. Anyways, call the hotline and yada, yada, yada. I just sent a feeler out to Nancy, who
I did see at the
what'd she tell you about being a local correspondent?
Women's basketball event.
Breaking news! Breaking news! Where's my breaking news sound? I don't know. Where is it?
Straight out of the North Valley.
What's brewing?
Breaking news on a weekly basis.
News just in.
So we were wondering if Nancy and Carrie, two of the all-time great What's Bruin Show fans. Like there's a pantheon of What's Bruin Show fans. I'm not going to go through them all because I don't want to neglect anybody. But certainly two of them are Carrie and Nancy, and they will be in Sacramento. And Nancy responded with, "Yes, Carrie and I are BFFs," and I love that. That's so beautiful.
Nice.
They have their tickets for the Elite Eight. They're going to be there, and this is going to be good. So they're going to send us a little report, and we're going to work that out.
I mean, if you don't have to, thank you so much for doing this.
No, you have to.
But
I was going to say, you have to do it.
If any sights, sounds, any audio tracks you want to record on your phone and send to us, 5-minute pregame, postgame, that would be amazing. It will be posted here
Nancy
on the
and
West
Carrie,
Bruin Show.
Two of the great women in the world.
Ever.
However you do it, ever. Just get out your iPhone and
Suck
just
it,
hit
Cleopatra.
the voice memo thing. Record whatever you want. Record yourselves talking. I don't care. And send it to me. And send it to whatsbruinshow@gmail.com. Or just text to me or whatever. And we will appreciate everything you have for us as the Bruins face off against Minnesota and probably LSU in Sacktown this weekend.
Yeah.
And
that's a good advantage for UCLA because, as you said, it's on the West Coast.
That's right.
Minnesota has to travel to 2 time zones.
Exterminate those Gophers.
Yeah, and so does LSU.
And LSU, yeah.
Yeah, so UCLA
beat those Tigers.
45-minute trip up the coast to middle northern California.
They get to fly, right? They don't have to bus.
Oh God, no! This is UCLA. Come on now.
Maybe a couple years ago, it would have been a bus.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
right.
Yeah. But anywho, we want to see them advance to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And that will be through Minnesota and most likely LSU, possibly Duke.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. We're going to talk about that a lot with Dave in a minute, so I'm not going to say any more about that. But, Mike, do you have anything to say before we bring on Dave?
Really quickly, it was announced this week that we talked about the breakdown of UCLA football's spring ball, which starts on Thursday. Damn, I just had my calendar. It starts on...
Blue 32! Blue 32! California! Hood! Hey! Football.
With Mike's new BFF, Chesney, the coach.
Bob Chesney. Yeah, we're homies now. We're basically like hanging out and stuff. Like, we've hung out once, but... It'll
good job, Mike.
Yeah, spring ball opens up on Thursday, April 2nd. I'm going to be there. Second one is going to be on Saturday, April 4th. Probably not going to be there because, as we said before, might be in Phoenix at that time.
And I might be too. I don't know. I'm like, Easter, whatevs.
I know,
Let's
right?
go to Phoenix. That's what I'm thinking
about. Let's do it. That is my springtime arising.
As soon as they get the schedule, I'm going to have to make a hard decision.
But it was announced this week that UCLA on May 2nd, Saturday, May 2nd at the Rose Bowl, UCLA is having an official spring game. No spring practice, no spring showcase, no glorified practice. Coming out of Bob Chesney's program, it's going to be a spring game at the Rose Bowl, noon, on May 2nd. So that's that has been finalized. It was put on the original schedule for spring ball, but the specifics weren't released until this week. And it's free admission. More specifics will be disclosed when we get closer to the event. But yeah, we are going to have an actual spring game. So I'm very happy about that. So yeah, not a lot of football stuff coming out aside from the fact that UCLA is killing it on the social media aspect. If you're not following UCLA football in this day and age, on the Twitters, on the TikToks, on the Instagrams, they're everywhere. They're just putting out really good content, and obviously they're putting out highlights and stuff like that. But I'm absolutely loving what this program is doing to promote this team. So that's football talk right now. So should we introduce our
we're going to bring
guest?
out Dave Marks. Mike, be quiet.
Well, I was going to say, do you want to go happy or do you want to go depressed first?
No, we're going women's basketball. We're
good.
leaving women's
Okay,
basketball.
then.
They're still in the tournament.
Fine.
They're not dead and buried like UCLA men's basketball.
Two
Out of the tournament.
UCLA teams enter. One already left.
Yes. So here we go. We're going to bring on Dave Marcus, the voice of UCLA women's basketball right now. All right, joining us once again on the What's Bruin Hotline. Almost a year to the day, I want to say. It's a year and a couple weeks since we had him on last, and it is Dave Marcus. Dave Marcus is a Birmingham Brave. No longer Brave, but we'll call him a Brave. He's also a Cal Bear, and for 23 freaking years, he's been the voice of UCLA women's basketball. And on Twitter, he's at Dave PBP. But it's our honor and privilege to have him on the What's Bruin Show once again to talk women's hoops in the tournament as the UCLA women's basketball team has made their way into the second week, the Sweet 16, all that good stuff. And we want to talk to Dave about it. So Dave, thanks for coming back on the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to talk to you guys again.
Absolutely. And so how was your first weekend of watching the women in the tournament. Not necessarily the games, just what was it like being back in the tournament, being at home for the last time this year, and all that. And we'll talk about the games in a few minutes.
You know, it was incredible, and part of what made it incredible was how loud it was in Pauley Pavilion.
Yes,
we've had crowds that size that were not that loud this year, but everybody knew this was NCAA tournament time and one and done, and the crowd really responded. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, to add to that point really quickly, yeah, it was maybe 80% filled. But every time the Bruins scored, it was just roars, just applause, just loud cheering. It was awesome. When Lauren Betts went out in the final minute, around the final minute, everybody was just giving her applause.
I'm really glad.
Oh,
go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, even before the game, you know, when I'm calling the game, I've got my headsets on and I'm trying to adjust the levels in my microphones. And last night it wasn't great, but you're trying not to have the crowd noise overwhelm the play-by-play. But I had my headset off about 25 minutes before the game when the Bruins first came out of the locker room to warm up, and the noise then was absolutely deafening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just great support by what has become a very loyal fan base.
That is awesome to hear, but it's funny because, you know, I was listening to different shows, national shows about women's basketball today, and more than one was talking about how the crowds at the home venues weren't as full at some of the places they could have been. And obviously you're saying we had a great crowd at Pauley, but it wasn't a sellout, right? But the question I want to ask you guys, Mike, I want to hit you first, then I'll ask for your opinion, Dave, is these are, for the women, the first rounds are hosted by the power team or whatever,
the top 16,
as opposed to the men's tournament where it's all neutral site games. Do you think the women's tournament, this is a good way to keep doing the women's tournament, being at the home tournament for the first weekend, or would you guys rather have it be the neutral site games like the men's side?
I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can give you some historical perspective on that.
Please.
The sites used to be predetermined where schools would bid for the opportunity to host a pod of 4 teams in the first and second round. And there were occasions when what would have been the home team didn't make the tournament. We played years ago at Ohio State, and Ohio State didn't make the tournament that year.
Wow.
So they moved the games from the main Value City Arena to St. John's Arena, the old volleyball venue on campus. We played Oklahoma there, and there were probably 500 people in the stands, and they were not really interested in the game. It was so depressing to get to that point in the season. The flip side of it also, way back when Nikki Caldwell, now Nikki Fargas, was the coach of the Bruins, UCLA was a 3 seed, but UCLA wasn't hosting the early pod. They got sent to Gonzaga, an 11 seed, coached by Kelly Graves, featuring Courtney Vandersloot, who went on to have an incredible all-star career in the WNBA. And I remember the other 2 teams. Iowa was in there. Iowa was the 6 seed. We were the 3, and Gonzaga was the 11. So you had the 11 seed hosting. And they had just opened up their new building, and there were 7,000 people in there, not a seat to be had. And I watched the Iowa-Gonzaga game, and I said, oh, my God, we are in trouble. Because the sound coming out of that arena, Gonzaga, the 11 seed, knocked off the 6 seed Iowa, and then the Bruins had to play them. And UCLA had a really good team, a 3 seed, but that was such an unfair disadvantage. Being a 3, playing at an 11 against a crowd like that, and UCLA's season came to an early end. So that's why the NCAA decided to place the top 16 seeds as the hosts for the original pods in the opening first and second round games. You know the team is going to make the tournament if they're a top 16 seed. They're in the tournament, they're good, and they've usually got pretty good fan support. So it's hard. I feel really bad for some teams that just missed out on hosting, but I understand why they do it. And I think that the women's game, as much as it's grown, is not at the point where neutral sites would be supported as well as the home sites are in the first and second weekend.
Yeah,
the first weekend.
I was gonna talk about that too. Obviously, with the men's tournament, you go where you're told, people will get there. But with women's basketball, unfortunately, it's taken this long to get some excitement behind it, to just get to this level of entertainment. But personally, I think it not only benefits. If you're one of the top 16 teams, you definitely deserve to host one of these. The first weekend, and sure that gives an advantage to the top 16, but it's a tradition that is specific to women's basketball, and I quite like I like that. Dave, can I just ask you this? Here's where I am a little bit perturbed about I guess not necessarily unfairness, but when we do get to the second round. Personally, I think they should be in 4 regions rather than 2. Putting 2 regions in one city. I don't see why there isn't, it's in Sacramento and Fort Worth. I don't see why there isn't one in the South, maybe the Midwest or the East. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they used to do it that way. There were always 4 regions until last year. Last year was the first time that they only had 2 regional sites. I will tell you selfishly, as a broadcaster, it's great for me because I'm working a game. I'm working a game on Friday, and if UCLA advances, they will play again Sunday at noon. Mm-hmm. There's another 4 teams that are going to play on Saturday, and my pass gets me in. So I love having it in one city.
Stop making it harder on Dave, Mike.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know what the reasoning was for the NCAA to consolidate it into only 2 sites. But it's fun. It gets a lot more fans in town of different teams, and it worked out pretty well last year. We'll see how Fort Worth and Sacramento do this year.
Yeah. And I was just to play off that. It was really fun this weekend when you had all 4 teams on that first day: the Cal Baptist fans, the Princeton fans, Oklahoma State, and UCLA. So I understand what you're talking about, where you might be you might not work on this day, but you can still go in and see all this basketball. That sounds fantastic. But just having all of those fan bases in one spot, that is really enjoyable.
It is.
It's really fun, and it's really fun in the community. And the Bruins actually played a game at the Golden One Center back in November, the 3rd game of the year. They played Oklahoma in that building, and there's so many restaurants around there. It's just a really fun place, and I think it's going to be popping on this weekend. It'll be great.
That's outstanding. I want to stay general. Just one more question before we get into the UCLA team specifically, and that's just. Looking at, Mike's had an excellent point, I thought, when he's saying that, the women's tournament is not necessarily the men's tournament. They can have their different ways of doing things, and they can all work, and they could have, it can change over the years as well. But I'm looking at, just the stats of number 1 seeds in the women's tournament, and it's obvious still the sport is at a place where it's still more top-heavy than the men's is as of right now, right? And, the last time a number 1 women's team seed lost was 1998. If correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think it had something to do with Stanford or something. Yeah, but
so I'll tell you a story about that.
Please.
It was Stanford. Stanford had 2 starters out in that game. They played a Harvard team, and Harvard had a player named Allison Feaster who went off. She scored 35 points in that game. Harvard, the 16, knocked off Stanford. Allison Feaster has a daughter. You may remember her name is Sarah Strong. Oh, wow. And she plays for UConn, and she's an incredible player. So that was the only time it happened. But, yesterday, Iowa, a 2 seed, lost at home. West Virginia, a 4 seed, lost at home. Mm-hmm. So it's getting a little bit more balanced.
It's catching up, yeah. And first, I want to make sure I get this in.
Suck it, Stanford.
Suck it, Stanford, indeed. but yeah, it is getting more even, but still those 1 seeds. So I guess my question is with this, if the women's tournament has things they can do differently than the men's, the way they have the 1 seeds right now, and they haven't lost in, it's only happened one time, and it only happened, once in the last 30 years or whatever. Is there anything maybe giving the number 1 seeds a bye or something in that first round and adding a couple more teams on the back end to have more competitive games? Is that something either of you would be interested in, or do you just like to see the slaughters on the first game of the tournament and just move on to the next one and let the number 1 seeds get challenged later in the tournament? Dave, what do you think about that?
I always think that the first round game is kind of fun, and that the knockout round really begins with the second round games when you're down to 32.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of held true this year. It was good for UCLA. They hadn't played in 2 weeks. They came out a little, not rusty, but they didn't play great in the first half against Cal Baptist. Then they outscored them 52-9 in the second half.
Right.
But it was a good chance to get their legs back under them after not playing for 2 weeks. The women's conference tournaments have kind of evolved that they are the first week after the regular season ends, and then the men's tournaments are the second week. So you don't have the men's team sitting out 14 days between games, and that's kind of an awkward amount when you've been playing every couple of days for 4 months.
No, it absolutely is, and yeah, that's something that you would. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like the playoffs for the football, in that those teams that are in the playoff have a big long layoff, just like all the teams historically have had going to the major bowl games. And you're right, it is kind of weird and kind of unnatural. Within or it's at the very least, it's got to be it's a hurdle you got to get over when you're talking about going from the regular season to the postseason. It's interesting how much they tinker with women's basketball in that regard, but just going more to, Dave, you already brought up how they beat Cal Baptist and then moved into the second round, and then they had the game against Oklahoma State. With Cal Baptist, do you think the slow start really was just the layoff more than anything else? Because certainly they finished strong.
I'm sure the coaches have talked to the team about it. I don't know exactly what they talked about. Cal Baptist is a pretty good team, despite the fact that they have no size. They won the WAC. They're a competitive team. Their point guard really good, Felipe Barros from Portugal, and they came out pretty strong. They probably gave it all they had by halftime. They were done.
Right.
They showed me more quality than I expected out of a 16 seed. And the Bruins didn't play bad in the first half, but the second quarter was a 2-point quarter. UCLA had a 2-point advantage. And I think Cal Baptist, and again, with all their fans who came in by bus, it was really fun. And that was a great moment for them. And, the Bruins responded in a way that a number one seed should respond and won the game. I mean, for crying out loud, 53 points. But, it was a kind of a good entry to the tournament.
Yeah, it's kind of like their defense had to kind of ramp it up. They were a little loose with the Lancers early, and then a 4-point quarter and a 5-point quarter. That's how you finish a game for sure. But I hear you, Dave, in that it's actually kind of okay in my book if you have your opening round game against a heavily outmatched opponent, and they happen to be a local opponent. Let them have a little bit of fun out there. Even if you want to say UCLA was playing with their food a little bit, like it's nice to let them have a little bit of a good time before the hammer comes down on it.
I think it's good for the game, and it's great for interest in women's basketball in Southern California.
Mike, how'd you take in the first game? You were there, right?
Yeah, I was there for both games.
So, what's your thought on the first game?
Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of rust and it just uncharacteristic play of the Bruins defensively. It seemed like they were a little slow. And then in the post game, the players said that they had a little chat with each other before the coaches came in and said what they needed to say. And then, yeah, you can't deny what they did in the second half, only allowing 4 points in the third quarter, 5 in the second, and then putting up 51 of their own. That's the UCLA that we've all seen this season. But they are subject to a few lulls here and there. Sometimes it just kind of happens. Even Coach Close talked about that in the Oklahoma State game. But that was more, I believe, UCLA came out really hot, and Oklahoma State just got back in the game, started throwing some haymakers. They were trading baskets, but it was just UCLA just had the advantage throughout the game. But it was a really close game.
Yeah, well, so UCLA finishes off Cal Baptist with a 52-9 run and head into the second round. As Mike just brought up, they play Okie State. And Dave, what were your thoughts on that game? Adding on to what Mike already said.
Well, the first quarter was great. The Bruins outscored them 21-6 in the first quarter, and it was interesting. The lead was 20 at halftime, and I interviewed the associate head coach Tony Noonan after the game. He's a great guy and a really good coach, and he said we never allowed Oklahoma State to play to their identity. They are a three-point shooting team. We took away the threes. And with a point lead, the Bruins were perfectly content to trade twos for twos. Even though UCLA did hit 7 threes in the game, the Bruins shot well, 41% outside the line and 52% overall. But they didn't want Oklahoma State to get comfortable. So although the Cowgirls did get some drives to the basket in the second half, and again, the UCLA defense has been really good this year. They have held the opponents to under 36% shooting. It's one of the best in the country. And they're throwing so many different looks at people. You got Lauren Betts out on the three-point line, guarding point guards, and she can do it. And so I think that the team itself was not concerned with the fact that the second half was closer than the first half. They had done their work in the first half, and they tried to deny Oklahoma State the opportunity to get comfortable doing what it is they like to do best.
No, I think that's totally fair too. And if you look at the stat line, right, Oklahoma State was from 3-point land, they were 5 for 20. But overall, like from 2-point land, they were over 50%. They were 24 for 47. But if that's what the strategy was, like you said, Dave, and in the second half, just kind of, they really played them almost even in the second half, but they could because they had built up that nice big lead. The other teams, the other one seeds, really kicked the crap out of their opponents in that second round game. Is that concerning to either one of you? Mike, I'll start with you.
Yes and no, because Oklahoma State is actually a really good offensive team. Just looking at some of the film before they played UCLA, I'm like, wow, this team can really hit some shots. And their forward, Akot, she just a very skilled individual. I mean, you expect her to kind of like be around the rim, but she can like pop out and hit mid-range shots. So I mean, it wasn't, at least for me, I don't think it was unexpected. But UCLA definitely does, and this is weird. UCLA wins by 21 points, or 21 points, right? Yeah, they win by double digits, and we're still going, well, they could do better. They could do better. That's kind of been the thing all season long, and that's what Corey Close talks about. It's like, even if they get like a 30-point win, she's like, this didn't go right or this didn't go right. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Well, I think that standard, they've talked a lot about the standard, but the standard is really high. And they always find something that they can do better. And I think that is the maturity of this team. You talked about the players, mentioned they had a players-only session before the coaches came in. This team really is perceptive. They understand what they're doing. They don't need a lot of kicking in the rear to get them going. They know what it is they have to work on. It's just an incredibly mature team, and this was a really good win. Oklahoma State, pretty good team, 24-10, but they had some rough spots at various points of the season. They had some injuries, but they I thought they were a real quality opponent. You talk about the other number one seeds. Okay, the Bruins beat Iowa, a 2 seed in the Big Ten championship game, by 51 points. Is it a failure if they only won this game by 87-68? No, not at all. They scored 87 points. That's about their season average. Oklahoma State got a few more points than most of the Bruins opponents have gotten. But, there are no style points awarded in the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, the other number one seeds are really terrific teams. Since the Bruins know all about Texas, Longhorns gave them their only loss in that game in Las Vegas on Thanksgiving weekend. UConn, although they didn't play a great schedule, they only had, I think, quad 1 wins. The Bruins had like 18. UConn's great. And, the Bruins know UConn's great. South Carolina, terrific team. And it'd be a great battle. And that's one of the teams I'm fortunate enough to be able to see if we're still in Sacramento on Saturday. They're hanging that other pot in Sacramento. And, I think you have to put LSU in that list of really dangerous teams. LSU scored over 100 yesterday for the 16th time this year. And their defense may not be what they used to be. They used to have Anissa Morrow in the middle who would grab every rebound. But LSU is really talented. So, there's plenty of hurdles to overcome. for the Bruins if they want to go all the way.
No doubt about that at all. And I'm as they advance, right? Number one, do you think that the Big Ten, who was it? Iowa just lost to Virginia in the second round, and Mike all year long has been propping up UCLA's record as they should be the number one seed overall, and they should be the number one team in the country, and yada yada yada. Even though UConn's undefeated, and even though UCLA had that loss to Texas, and I think Mike had a pretty compelling argument for that. But when you look at how the Big Ten has performed in the actual tournament right now, does that make us kind of re-examine UCLA's strength of schedule at all in relation to how the Big Ten's been in the tournament? Is that a concern at all, or do you still think that UCLA did play a very, very impressive schedule and, heading forward in the tournament, we're still very bullish on how they are? Dave, what do you think about that?
I mean, I'm with Mike on that one. I think that UCLA was deserving of the number one overall seed, but I also think it doesn't matter. As long as you get the number one seed in your region, and you're not going to have to play the overall number one seed until the championship game. If you get there, then the only question is, are you going to wear a blue uniform or a white uniform?
Right.
I think the Big Ten was really terrific this year, and it was really terrific for UCLA because the Big Ten has so many different styles of play. They had teams that liked to press. They had teams that were defensive. They had teams that were high-flying scoring teams. And the Big Ten was really a good test. It is disappointing for the conference that 9 of the 12 teams are already out.
Right.
I thought we'd get 5 into the Sweet 16. But, Iowa ran into a determined Virginia team. That was such a great game yesterday. And, Virginia, first team ever to go from the first 4 to the Sweet 16. They were absolutely incredible. And I'm sure that was a very tough loss for Iowa, playing at home in front of 15,000 people. They did not expect to be walking out of there shaking their heads. And I'm sure there's going to be some soul searching in the off season for Jan Jensen and her squad. They're an excellent team, and they just, ran into a buzzsaw yesterday. But I think you can't negate the overall strength of schedule. And the strength of schedule in the Big Ten, I think it was the best conference in the country. The SEC has a lot of good teams, and a lot of them are moving on. I think they have 7 moving on to the next round.
Right.
But the bottom of the SEC is not as good as the bottom of the Big Ten. Yeah. I think that the Big Ten overall, top to bottom, was, the metrics, I think, all showed that. And I think it was a great proving ground for UCLA. So hopefully that's prepared them for whatever style of play they have to play on here to the finish.
Dave, I wanted a quick sidebar. Last night, Syracuse's coach, I'm blanking on her name right now, but she was talking about
Alicia Leggett-Jack.
Yes, thank you. I know something I couldn't pronounce properly. She was talking about how every year she gets matched up with UConn, and it's kind of unfair. Coach Close talked about that there's this rule with the NCAA tournament where they don't necessarily want to match up conference opponents in the Elite Eight, but it's okay for the Sweet 16. But even still, once again, for the third year in a row, there's a potential matchup with UCLA and LSU. Is it... How do I phrase this? Do you think the committee really needs to re-examine and maybe refigure how they select teams to where they go and who they play, and maybe have a little bit more randomness with the seeding rather than having teams play each other in consecutive seasons?
I make it very clear that the committee has not solicited my opinion on this topic. But I think that the bracketing principles that they've gone by for all the years, when you had 5 power conferences of 10 to 12 teams each, and now you've got mega conferences of 16 to 18 teams each, I think the bracket principles have to evolve too. Mm-hmm. And, the only reason that LSU is in the UCLA's bracket is because of those bracketing principles and the other teams that LSU would otherwise have to meet in the regional final. It's 3 years in a row, and LSU. If you look at the true S curve, LSU is the best or the second best number 2 seed, and UCLA is the best or the second best number 1 seed. Mm-hmm. And they shouldn't, from a standpoint of competitive balance, be lining up in the regional final. That's just my personal opinion. I think that when you have these giant conferences, they need a little evolution.
But and with that being said, though, if you look at the way the ones and the twos spread out, there are only two real picks that going on what Mike just said in the arguments about it. The other two of the other seeds are Big Ten teams, the 2 seeds in Iowa and Michigan, and then the other one's Vandy. So it's like, it'd be nice if they would have thrown Vandy up against UCLA instead of LSU. But when there's so many Big Ten teams and SEC teams in there anyway, the matchups are only you can only do so much with them, I think, right?
Yeah, it's true, and be careful what you wish for. Vanderbilt is really good.
Yeah.
They have a player, Michaela Blakes, their leading scorer, is the leading scorer in the country. She is an incredible player, and they've got a freshman point guard, Aubrey Galvin, who is astonishingly good. They're a really dangerous team. I don't think I don't know about playing Vandy. They're really a handful.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
It's just.
I'm all anchored down when they take on UConn in the Elite Eight, probably. So let's go. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's very strange that UCLA is playing Minnesota in the Sweet 16. It's also strange because you only played Minnesota once a year.
Yeah.
But the Bruins have played LSU more in the last couple of years than they've played Minnesota. But it'll be an interesting matchup. Minnesota's a really solid team. They're good at every position. So, but that's off our topic. But I think it's just really hard when you have these giant conferences. Just rank them out according to the S curve and let them play whoever.
And that makes total sense to me too, Dave, right there. But no, you're absolutely not off topic. So the next thing I want to go to before Mike took us off topic was the next matchup, right? Mm-hmm. And that is UCLA versus Minnesota, 1 versus 4. UCLA is an 18.5-point favorite as of right now. It's a common opponent, but Dave, you just said they've only played them the one time. I have a compound question for you both. Dave, I'll start with you. Number one, what do you think about this particular matchup against Minnesota this time? And it's going to be in Sacktown, right, guys? Sacktown?
Yes.
It's going to be in Sacramento. And then there's like literally, or what are the chances that UCLA faces something other than LSU in the Elite Eight, right? It could be Duke, it could be LSU, but it's going to be LSU, right, guys? Dave, what do you think about Okie State? And then what do you think about LSU after that?
Minnesota.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Not Okie State. Minnesota and then LSU.
That is definitely a compound question. Let's talk first about LSU and Duke. Duke is a different team than the team that UCLA beat by 30 in November. Mm-hmm. If you go back even before that game against UCLA, Duke was playing a game in a ballroom at the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia.
Nice.
And there was an altercation at the end of the first half. And 2 players, not anything serious, pushing and shoving, a little scuffling, but 5 West Virginia players left the bench. And according to the review, they all were disqualified.
Wow.
West Virginia played the entire second half with only 5 players, including one that didn't even play in the first half.
Sheesh.
And West Virginia won that game against Duke. And Duke, which was a top 10 team at the time, absolutely went into a tailspin. And it took them a long time to reestablish themselves. But they are a very good defensive team. They've got a shot blocker, Toby Fournier, a Canadian, 6'5". She can score. She can block shots. Duke is really good. They've got long-range threats. Ashlyn Jackson is a good three-point shooter. I think if they can hold LSU down, they can probably score enough points at the other end to make it a really competitive game.
Nice.
All that being said, LSU is, they're scoring 100 points a game. So Duke's really going to have their defensive effort ahead of them. As far as the UCLA-Minnesota game, it's an intriguing matchup. Minnesota doesn't have any breakout star-looking players. You look at them, you don't think, oh, my God, how are we going to stop her? But they're solid all 1 through 5. They have a good scorer, Grace Grohalski, who the Bruins really held in check at Minnesota. But they're just really solid at every position. They're always in position, and they don't turn the ball over. And, it'll be a tough battle for UCLA. The Bruins won the game at the barn in Minneapolis, 76-58. But Minnesota was missing Tori McKinney, who's one of their really good players. She was out in concussion protocol. And she's a player that's really been valuable for them off the bench. So, Minnesota's got some size. They don't have anybody 6'7", but they've got some size. They have a big post Sophie Hart, who I'm sure is going to be physical with Lauren Betts. And I think it could be a really interesting game. It's interesting to have it as a rematch in the Sweet 16, but I think it's going to be a pretty competitive game.
Mike, how are you feeling about UCLA versus the Gophers?
I'm a little bit more concerned simply because this isn't the NCAA tournament. The regular season, you're going out there and you're just trying to battle against one of your conference opponents that well, at least for UCLA, it's only the second year in the Big Ten. So they're still trying to get used to the style of play of all these teams. But, UCLA does a really good job of scouting. The coaching staff is really on point. I mean, just the fact that they dissect offense and defense of every single team. I believe that, as well as the execution of the players, will propel UCLA, will propel the Bruins forward. But even still, Minnesota was down in their round of 32 game, I think by 5 in the last minute, something like that, and they roared back and just they were just kind of like surgical with how they were able to defeat. And I'm blanking is another thing I'm blanking on, but they were just really impressive down the stretch, and that's what you got to be scared of. And that's one thing I was talking to one of the other guys with Bruin 24/7, Chris Johnson, with the Cal Baptist team. UCLA cannot come out and have a weak, an uncharacteristic first half. It was fine against Cal Baptist because Cal Baptist not as talented. They did show how solid of a team they are, but it's going to be different when you come up against Minnesota and LSU's and whoever they potentially face. So they need to be very aware of how these teams not only perform but perform in the NCAA tournament, because if you lose, you're done. If you win, you're on to the next round. And for UCLA, it's trying to get back to the Final Four, trying to prove that they are one of the best. They are one of the best teams, but they need to prove it in the tournament. That's when people are going to talk. That's what's going to have the narrative go forward about, yeah, Corey Close can do this and she can do that. Look what she's done over the last 2-3 seasons. So they cannot take Minnesota for granted. Like Dave said. Not necessarily a team that has has superstars on it, but yeah, their starters are just really gritty, don't quit, and they are they could be dangerous. So UCLA needs to be very aware of that. And what did you say that the line was? 18 points?
18.5. As of right now.
I think that's personally, I think that's a little generous. I still think UCLA might get a double-digit win, but that's for the NCAA tournament. I think that's a little bit. That's nice. That's a nice spread. So,
I'm just looking at the box score of Minnesota's win the other day against Mississippi, and they were really helped by the fact that Cody McMahon, who is a really hard player to stop, stopped herself. She picked up some terrible fouls and fouled out on a charge with about 5 minutes left. But Minnesota had 3 players in double figures. Mara Braun, who's a great story. She got hurt in the opening game or two of each of the last 2 years and missed the entire season. And she came back this year, and it took her a while to get into playing shape, but she's really a good player. She had 17 points and played all 40 minutes in that game. Amaya Battle, who hit the game winner, had 14. Sophie Hart, the post, had 10. Tori McKinney, 8. Grace Grafalski, 9. Grace Grafalski, 8. So they had 5 players right around double figures. They can really spread it out. They're not as deep as the Bruin. When Minnesota has to go to the bench, UCLA will have a tremendous advantage. But the top 5 are pretty good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I think all of us are expecting the Bruins to advance beyond that game. And I think, even though, Dave, you made a good case for Duke, we're all thinking that it's probably most likely going to be LSU. If they do take on LSU in the Elite Eight game, Mike, what do you think about that matchup, first of all?
UCLA, Corey Close has been talking about defense. Over the last few seasons, the best defensive team has won the national championship. UCLA is a very good defensive team, and they really have to bring that out against LSU, which is a fast team, have a bunch of great scorers. UCLA can score. but they really need to rely on their offense and shutting down every facet as much as they can against LSU. Kim Mulkey there's a reason she has some championship hardware. She's going to look at every single aspect of this UCLA team, and she's going to try to figure out what their weaknesses are, how they can get around them. But for Corey Close and company, they have to buckle down on defense.
Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, putting it in perspective, having played LSU in each of the last 2 years, 2 years ago, LSU won the game. That was a Sweet 16 game. And LSU was just quicker to the ball on the 50-50 balls. Flau'jae Johnson, Angel Reese, they had tremendous games. And I think that taught the Bruins a little something about the mentality they needed to compete in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Last year, UCLA won the game against LSU, and they did have the jump on them on every loose ball. It was a Bruin pouncing on it. So it would be a tremendous matchup. I'm looking at LSU's box score. Again, they played Texas Tech, not a world beater team, but Flau'jae Johnson had 24, Michaela Williams had 24. They've got some scorers on their team. After that, it's a bit of a drop-off. Malaysia Fulwiley, the transfer from South Carolina, everybody thought was going to be the difference maker for them this year. She played 16 minutes and scored 2 points. So, she's been not the offensive weapon that everybody thought that she would be. They don't have really good post presence. Kate Koval, the transfer from Notre Dame, okay, she scored 10 the other day, 3 for 5 from the floor. But the Bruins should have a decided advantage inside. But what they really have to do is stop the high flyers. They got to stop Flau'jae Johnson. She is an incredible player. She was so hurt last year when they lost to UCLA. And in her senior year, she's going to come out with everything she has. So it's a fascinating matchup. I mean, it's interesting to have a rivalry with an SEC team that's located all the way across the country. But 3 games in 3 years, if it happens, would be pretty epic.
Absolutely. So I want to pause here for a minute and just say we were all happy to see USC get murdered by South Carolina over the weekend, right, guys? But
USC beating USC,
like they need to, SC beating SC, but like USC is going to be very good next year, right? So we should enjoy this while it lasts.
Yeah,
is that kind of where we're at with that?
Yeah, they 3 years in a row they land the number 1 recruit in the nation. That's really good recruiting by Lindsey Gottlieb, and you have Juju Watkins, who I'm sure she's going to be licking her chops coming into next season, and just with Jazzy Davidson, not a lot of things. The team really relied on Jazzy Davidson this year, but as a freshman, that's a lot to take on. But it was great to see that they made it to the tournament. But next year is going to be a different beast.
Dave, I want to talk more about UCLA's future in a minute, but what do you think about SC coming into next year?
Well, I mean, they're going to be very talented. Juju Watkins is a generational player, and Jazzy Davidson was great as a freshman this year. Who knows what the pieces will be around them. I don't assume anything in an NIL transfer portal era. So I have no idea. But they should be much improved next year.
All right. So getting back to UCLA, what we really want to talk about, and that is, last year was a step forward. Mike spent all of last year going, they need to get a trophy. They need to win something. They need to bring home some hardware, yada, yada, yada. And they lose the Big Ten conference, in the last game against SC. But then they go and they win the Big Ten tournament. And that was the hardware Mike was looking for. And then they get into the NCAA tournament and they make it to the Final Four for the first time in, the first NCAA Final Four and the first time in a long time in any Final Four. And so that certainly was progress for this group. And that was a group that last year was, for the most part, coming back this year. And then they made some very key additions, as Mike has chronicled, throughout this basketball season. But now they come in this year and they've been pretty much no worse than the number 2 team in the country. And in I know in Mike's heart and in Dave's heart, they've been the number 1 team in the country for like the entire season. They had a bad half against Texas, whatever, but they've been very, very, very good all season. And now, like, a Final Four ain't going to cut it this year. right, guys? I mean, they need to make the title game, and then they need to play UConn. And I think all of us want them to beat freaking UConn. But looking at their prospects for actually bringing home an NCAA title this year, Mike, do you think UConn's their toughest opponent? Dave, do you think that that's something that we really can? I know you can't bank on it, but is that what you're expecting this year? Dave, I'll go to you first. Dave, what do you think about the Bruins prospects?
I'm going to back it off a little bit. I think it's been an incredible season. Whatever happens in the next 2 weeks, this has been an incredible group. They have redefined the elite status of UCLA women's basketball. And, one game is one game. If you win, it's great. If you lose, the other team, give them credit.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of talent in this remaining 16 teams. So I think that the positives would not be undone by a negative result in one game. This has been a sea change in this program and what it stands for. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks.
Mike, what do you expect from them this year?
Obviously, it would be great to, at the very least, return to the Final Four. But LSU, if they beat Minnesota and if LSU advances to the Elite Eight, that's going to be a great game. Let's say they do get to the national championship game, it's just going to be harder and harder every step, because I think it's going to be chalk in the Final Four, where you're going to have all number 4, not guaranteed, all number but all number 4. Sorry about that. You're going to have 4 number 1 seeds. Is my prediction. And if UCLA goes to the Final Four and potentially meets Texas, that's going to be a bit of a revenge game. UCLA might have a chip on their shoulder. They want to prove that they can beat Texas, and that what happened back in the non-conference was maybe a fluke. But then you maybe potentially take on UConn, and that's going to be a tough hill to climb, because they are undefeated. Yes, I have my arguments for why UCLA was the better team, but it doesn't mean that Connecticut is a horrible team. They are absolutely an amazing team. Strong, Fudd, Ariyama, just a guy who has surpassed a gentleman who in our hearts is number 1, John Wooden. That's going to be really tough to do. If they do that, that is going to cap off an epic season. But like Dave said, what they've done so far is just freaking phenomenal. I love it.
And if you look at the betting odds right now, national championship betting odds, I'm going to FanDuel right now, but UConn is still the only one that's got a negative value. They're minus 260, and UCLA is the next best odds at plus 550. So, I'm just talking about, I'm trying to think out what to expect from this team, and they made the Final Four last year. I would love to see them in the title game this year. And I completely agree with Dave. In a single elimination tournament, you have no idea what the F's are going to happen. But I would love to see them take at least one more step. And then I want to see them play UConn. That's the matchup I think all of us want to see.
I know they would love to have a chance. I'll take you back to last year's Final Four. The game right before the Bruins played UConn was Texas and South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And South Carolina ran over Texas in the Final Four last year. And look what Texas did when they came back. They played them and they beat them in Las Vegas in November. The day after the Bruins lost to Texas, Texas beat South Carolina. So, these teams are all really good. And who's better on that day is going to be a big determinant. I will tell you, though, UConn, the guards really did a number on the Bruins last year. That won't happen again. Yeah. Ashlyn Shade, KK Arnold. I don't think UCLA is going to let them control the pace like they did last year. The Bruins can play a fast pace, and they're not going to get sped up like they did if they play UConn again. I think it is going to be a much more competitive game.
I really, really, really hope we get to see that game. I really do. That'd be a lot of fun. So, Dave has given us 45 minutes of his time, something like that, and couldn't be more generous. Once again, for 23 years, the voice of women's UCLA basketball, and we couldn't appreciate him any more. So listen to your broadcast of UCLA women's hoops, and follow him on Dave PBP at Twitter, and let's go Bruins in the women's tournament. I think we're gonna, Dave. I think it's funny. I think we have a couple fans as local correspondents up in Sacramento this weekend. If they make it to Phoenix, Mike's going to be there, and maybe I might be there as well. And
that's great.
I'll definitely buy you a cocktail if we meet up out there, Dave. But
that works for me.
Yeah, it's time to really lock into this women's tournament because that's what we have left to cheer for. Thank you, men. So
it's
ouch, Dave. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Mike can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Dave, so much.
We probably should make this more than a yearly event. I'd love to get you talking at the beginning of next year's hoops. But have a great. Hopefully, you get 4 more calls out there for Bruins women's hoops. And thank you for joining the show.
Jake, Mike, always a pleasure. And I know Corey Close has said it many times, but the fact that you're devoting your efforts to covering this great sport is fantastic. So thanks for having me on. A pleasure talking to you, and hopefully I'll see you in Phoenix.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Mike, what an outstanding interview with old Dave.
I always tell him,
I'm getting
10, 15 minutes. Right?
I'm getting him in the studio next time.
I think he was intrigued by that. I always tell people 10, 15
he told me
minutes.
He lives locally. He's coming in.
Yeah. And you just when our guests can provide us with 45 minutes of great content, that is amazing. So for all of you listening right now that are on a high, I understand it. It's a legal high, but this gives a good fuel for the for the women's team this weekend. Gets you caught up on what they've done and what lies ahead.
Let's go Bruins. All right, let's get to men's.
All right.
Mike, the men's team gets eliminated in the round of 32
for the second consecutive season.
There we go. That's what it is. They beat UCF, in that matchup, and then they lose to UConn in a game that I watched on a plane from Dallas. This game.
Which one, UCF or
no? The
UConn.
The UConn game.
Okay.
And I was like, man, they're hanging in there. This is awesome. They're doing good without Bilodeau. Outmatched that stupid freshman and that stupid senior, whatever it was, the one that, both those guys, I hate those guys. Screw UConn. But it's one of those like, geez, if they had Bilodeau, I would have been really bullish on their chance to kind of keep going in this tournament.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and so they didn't.
Yeah.
And so it's like, where are we left with this? So, Mike, what'd you think of the UCF game? Number one, let's start there. What'd you think of the UCF game?
Well, first off, we knew that minutes before that Bilodeau was not going to play. So it was like, okay, that just decreases their chances. But the Bruins came out and kicked some butt. They put on, they had some good offensive stretches. They held Central Florida, kept them in check for the most part. I mean, they won 75-71. Still a pretty solid, concrete win, but if they had Bilodeau, this has got to be a double-digit win. I mean, Bilodeau has, and it's just weird. Every time I think of Bilodeau and people knocking him, I'm like, what are you talking about? This has been the guy who's been consistent. He is a double-digit scorer. He's improved from last season, and it just sucks that he got this injury that has kept him out for the last few games. So they, in my opinion, I think they would have blown out UCF. But at the same time, you have everyone else that stepped up. Daly stepped up. Sky Clark was very serviceable. Booker had some really good moments. So it was really good to see the Bruins kind of like rally around themselves and put forth this effort that just, it was kind of uncharacteristic of this UCLA team, because this UCLA team has been very inconsistent all season long, but they all kind of came together and just were like, yeah, no, we're doing this. We're getting that win. And going into the game, I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but going into the game against UConn, like I know, right?
That's okay. Go UConn.
We found out that Bilodeau was again not going to play. I guess his knee, it's just really it's not in a good situation right now. they were without Bilodeau. So they come out and they were hanging with Connecticut. They had a lead for a good portion of the game, but it just seemed like towards the end, exhaustion, talent, the crowd, I could imagine, was a big factor, being like, a stone's throw from Connecticut. The game was in Philly, my formerly second home. But things kind of unraveled. I mean, they were still doing really good against this Connecticut team.
Only loons.
It was not a bad loss.
It absolutely was not.
No. They fought hard.
How can we be upset about this, really?
Exactly.
Right?
No, it was actually, this was way better than the loss to Tennessee last year. That was almost like, what are we doing here?
I got a lot of enjoyment out of watching this game. And that's the frustrating part about it, because it's like in the first half when Connecticut couldn't fucking hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah.
And then
their defense was pretty good.
To get it going. I was very impressed with them.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like. I was very impressed with that effort. I was like, man, if they can manufacture this without Bilodeau, like this is going to be pretty awesome. And then the dam broke.
Really quickly, that's what I was thinking too. If they do this without Bilodeau, and maybe Bilodeau comes back, maybe they win and Bilodeau
get a week
comes
off.
back.
It's like,
I was like, is this another
It
maybe
definitely-
potential Final Four run?
Yeah, it's like, are we fooling ourselves into that? you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
But they didn't.
No.
And the dam
no.
did break about midway through the second half.
Yeah.
And they end up losing by fucking 16.
Yeah.
And now here
Cronin
we are.
gets another
He has
technical. Although that was ticky-tack. There was a Donovan Dent foul, quote-unquote foul, which the guy kicked out his legs and is shooting a three-pointer, and so they got 3 free throws. That was BS. And then Cronin, it is quite the sideline show.
All the 3-point fouls that were nonsense. Yeah,
that was insane. But then the whole because it didn't seem like he was clapping at the ref, like maybe he was clapping at one of his players, and the ref took it the wrong way. I guess. Come on,
ref.
This is the NCAA tournament. Let's not be ticky tack with this stuff. Yeah, Mick Cronin has not, especially this season, he has proven to have a less than savory sideline demeanor. But there was nothing there. There was nothing there. That was BS. And that kind of started the unraveling with UCLA and just allowed Connecticut to just extend their lead and just hold UCLA at bay. And once again, UCLA exits the NCAA tournament in the second round for the second year in a row.
So now they're gone.
Uh-huh.
Bilodeau's gone.
Yeah.
Knee notwithstanding, he's done. Donovan Dent is done.
Yeah.
They got guys, but now in the weird, wacky world of NCAA basketball, are these guys going to stay? Are they going to go? Who knows at this point? And even if they went, like 5 years ago, if guys left, you could be like, oh, well, that's a reflection on the coaching. Now you have no freaking idea, do you? Might be a reflection on the coaching. It might be a reflection on the money.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, how do we feel about Mick Cronin after this season where we thought they were going to be good? And I want to ask you about a number of people on this team, but
yeah.
Right now it's Mick Cronin. How should we feel about Mick Cronin right now after a season which they underwhelmed, and then they get into the tournament and it was pretty much chalky? They had a chance. We could have seen a path for them to win and go on a run in this one.
Yeah.
So it's not like they acquitted themselves poorly, really.
Yeah.
So where are you with Cronin after this particular year, with all the weird shit that's happened this year?
Look, obviously it was embarrassing what he did at Michigan State, but he addressed it. He apologized. He was sincere about kind of losing it at Michigan State.
Yeah.
And it just showed because in their last 6 games before the tournament, 5 or 6 games, he beat 3 ranked teams.
And these dudes were playing hard for him.
Yes, exactly.
And they were playing hard for him in this game.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I've been hard on Cronin this entire season, but there was definitely a change. And that's what I wanted to see. This is what Mick Cronin should be doing from the start. It's just, I kind of go back to, like, he's actually said this once every, in a post-game presser, once at the minimum over the last 3 seasons, but earlier in the season, he talked about how, the throwing the players under the bus, the fact that he can kind of see that the team is going to play a certain way. And it's like, well, then why don't you do something about it? You're the head coach. You should have control of this team. And it just kind of seemed like he, at times, didn't have it. I mean, we talked to Bill a couple of weeks ago, and he agreed with me. Like, the key word in that podcast was inconsistency.
Right.
They were a much better team after that Michigan State game. And they showed it. They all kind of like played for each other, and it just sucks that Bilodeau got hurt. But yeah, UCLA is losing. Well, potentially, Sky Clark is applying for another year. If not, obviously he's gone. But you lose Bilodeau, you lose Jamerson, Peoples, who didn't play like almost at all.
Dent.
You have Brown and Dent. That is the core of this team.
Well, here,
so
is it the core, or who do you have left then? Who, if they retain the guys they got, who would be the core for next year?
Well, the core for next year is Trent Perry, Xavier Booker, Daly, Brandon Williams, Eric Freeney, and Clark potentially.
So, Mike, let's say that, or actually, I want to ask you first this question. Clark, above a 50% chance he gets another year, or below a 50% chance?
I
heard something today about how, like, he's over the threshold of like 12 games, yada. So it's probably maybe a pipe dream.
But then the NCAA
or is it not?
And then the NCAA just grants like 12 years to random players who have been injured. Yeah, just random. I hope they see that it was kind of like just this freak injury that didn't give him a chance and didn't give UCLA a chance. So maybe that gives the NCAA, maybe they find it in their heart to help out UCLA in that aspect.
Let's go rosy colored then. Let's say they keep Clark and then they have the guys you listed and they retain the guys that they want theoretically. What does that core look like to you?
It's difficult because like last year, actually the last 2 years, even with UCLA football, UCLA men's basketball, and women's basketball, players that I thought would stay would leave.
No, but let's assume they're going to stay. What do you think of that core?
It's a core that would be competitive, but I don't think, and it honestly depends on the transfers, but that's hit or miss.
What would they need to get to make that core something you're optimistic about?
They would need another star guard, combo guard.
To replace Dent and...
Yeah, because I think Trent Perry, with an offseason, he didn't have a great NCAA tournament, but he
was playing his ass off.
He showed his medal this year,
The shooting wasn't there, but I thought he was playing his ass off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he will be a lot better, and I think he will be very serviceable, but they need another stud guard, and they definitely need a post player, preferably a center that is defensive minded.
Okay, so like we don't know, the transfer portal's wackadoodle, right?
Yeah.
We don't know, like UCLA probably, Mick Cronin's comments about not having enough notwithstanding, UCLA is not broke when it comes to NIL and basketball, right? Like they do have a war chest of sorts.
Yeah, it's just like Mick Cronin just presents us with the best post-game pressers.
And most of that shit I just ignore. But what I'm saying is they're not broke. They have money to spend.
They can figure it out. Yeah.
So if they come at it, if they're able to retain guys that they already have, add a couple guys, they're not barren of talent going into next year, right?
No, they'll have talent, but they really need to add some key players because it's, as of now, just with this core, like I said, they'll be competitive, but I don't think they will battle for the Big Ten championship, let alone a national championship.
Okay, and I guess we'll have to. I mean, looking at this year when they brought in Donovan Dent, we were like, even though like losing the centers was really tough, we still thought that they would be better than they were for the entire season with bringing in Dent than they were. I want to talk about Dent in a minute, but I don't want to talk about Dent yet. I want to talk about Cronin right now.
Yeah,
Cronin, Mike. We've been up and down with him all season, and he's had some really low lights this season, some of his lowest low lights as a UCLA coach. But like you said, they kind of brought it all together at the end of the season, and were kind of peaking to the point to where last time me and you talked, I was talking about the insight. I think it was Leo that called and said that Cronin's more of a freaking Lavin at this point than he is a Howland. And record-wise, he's actually fucking dead on balls accurate.
Yeah, right.
The feeling might not be there, but if you look at the records, it's like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I don't feel in my heart like I feel about Cronin like I do friend of the show, Steve Lavin, who we interviewed on here.
Yeah.
But still, when I think back of the Lavin years, I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
I think of Cronin, I'm still filled with like, maybe it's false confidence, but I'm still filled with like, I like Cronin. I like his, for the most part, I like his style.
Yeah.
And I think that for the most part, his players like his style.
Yeah.
This is my question for you, Mike. We're now in an age where whether a player likes a coach or not is much less relevant than how much that player is going to get on the open market.
That's what I'm going to say, yeah.
So let's say UCLA does retain a lot of what their core is at hopefully reasonable rates, right? Rates that are, affordable for UCLA so where they can still go out and get other guys.
Yeah.
Versus the other scenario where guys just bolt and now UCLA has an entirely new team and maybe guys that they're paying money to, but it's an entirely new team, right?
Yeah.
Do you think either they retain most everybody or everybody bolts? Do you think either is a commentary on how the modern player relates to Mick Cronin's coaching style right now? Because in the past, even though fans get annoyed with how he talks to people or about his press conferences or how he looks during games, I have always stood by the point of, I don't give a flying crap what a fan thinks about what Mick Cronin looks like when he's coaching or after the game. What I look at is he doesn't lose players, Mara notwithstanding, but for the most part, those players seem to love him by the time they leave UCLA.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about right now, unless he holds on to a lot of these guys for the money that they're worth, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I think that may be indicative of maybe his shtick not working as much as it used to. But I don't know. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, he actually has lost maybe 3 to 5 players over the last 2 seasons, and there were guys that just were not.
Mara's the big one. Who are the other ones?
I'm blanking on the point guard from last season. He went to Boise State.
I'm not the one to ask.
Yeah, exactly. I'm blanking on it right now. He lost a lot of the international guys 2 years ago.
Right, okay.
Burke's at Nebraska, which is still in the tournament right now. Mara's at Michigan.
Mara's the big one.
Yeah, Mara was the big one, literally. Take away all of the sideline antics and the post game pressers. You still got to look at what Mick Cronin has done. It's a third straight. It's in the last 3 seasons since the Jaime Jaquez roster. He's only been to 2 tournaments, and in those 2 tournaments, he's lost in the round of 32.
Yeah,
not great. That's not where UCLA should be. He's not. I can't remember the last time he brought in a 4 or 5 star recruit. Maybe that would. Oh God. I should really prepare this part. the one guy that
you're about the women right now, Mike. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's entertaining. Yeah, he's just not bringing in top high school recruits, which I think you still need. Yes, the transfer portal is awesome. You got to deal with NIL and how much you have to pay for these players, but there's also something to be said about 4 or 5 star players that come in, but
there's
they
no doubt.
Don't necessarily want to come in and play for Mick Cronin. So, and it's not just that. It's the big picture. UCLA in the last 3 seasons has not been competitive, has not been competing for a conference championship, let alone a national championship. And honestly, if you're coming in to coach UCLA, that's the goal.
But
And I know it's an antiquated take, because UCLA hasn't won a championship in
one title
30
since the freaking
exactly
70s.
But that
since I was born, one title since I was born.
At the very least, that it should be a goal, like the Elite 8, the Final 4, at least a conference championship.
Yeah.
In Cronin's 7 years, he's won 1 regular season championship, and that's it.
In a Final 4.
He went to a Final 4, yeah.
And like I said, his profile is looking more and more like Steve Lavin every year. But I would say this, and we've harped on this many years in a row now, because the one thing I would say about Cronin is it's not like he keeps doing the same thing over and over again. He tried, with this crazy changing landscape, I will give him credit for trying different things. And like you said, Mike, I think you can make a very compelling argument that he's gotten away from what makes him great, which is getting tough guys out of high school, turning them into tough guys, and then rolling with them as they develop, right? I think that is probably his wheelhouse. And hopefully maybe he's learned that lesson, and hopefully we can see him try to do that again at UCLA, because I would love to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
But in his defense, in a clearly like more dynamic than ever before landscape of men's college basketball, he's tried a different thing each and every year. He went to the international market. He went to the transfer market. Mm-hmm. And to me, in my mind still, I still believe in the coach. And I see him trying different things and have them not working out, but then pivoting to something else. I'm hoping that, Mike, he comes to the same conclusion you came to and be like, well, let's just get back to old school. Let's get some guys that seem like they're pretty good guys. Maybe they're not the 5-star guys, but maybe they're the 4-star guys, but they're tough, rugged sons of bitches. And we're going to go to war with these guys and see how they develop over time and see if you can get back to that lightning of a bottle, which was that Jaime Jaquez, Johnny Juzang, Tiger Campbell group that grew together and became just freaking ass kickers, right?
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense, Mike?
Oh, totally.
But with that being said, maybe that's why I'm not so as down on Cronin as a lot of other people are, because I at least see him pivoting. It's not the guy banging his head into the wall the same way each and every year. At least he's banging a different part of his forehead into the wall each and every year, even if it's not paying off quite yet. I want to see, I want to see him give this another go and see if he can get this reoriented. Like when Ben Howland was dismissed, right? When Ben Howland left UCLA, it was like everything he did that made him had changed, but it didn't seem like he was going back.
Yeah.
You know, it just got to the end where it was just kind of lost his way, and he lost the thread of the rope or whatever. I still am hoping that Cronin can kind of seize this back and, make some hay with this. But I guess it all remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I see where you're going. I think it's a little different. I think he's trying to change his approach or change what he knows or try to tweak what he knows, where he probably should be looking at maybe not a complete overhaul of recruiting, coaching, recruit interaction, but definitely something needs to change. He has to figure out how to get this team, the most decorated program in history, suck at Egypt and South Korea and England. It's the most decorated program in history, and it just hasn't. And it's not just Cronin's fault. But if you're going to come here and try to win a championship, try to keep the program above, keep the program's head above water, that's not where this should be. UCLA should not be keeping the program's head above water. It should be on the yacht on the top deck.
It should
dancing,
but
with the hot models and the DJs and getting all the accolades. But yeah, I'm obviously it is hyperbole, but it's not even close to that. It just seems like he had something with the Jaquez team and has not been able to get back to it. And despite trying to, with his best efforts, trying to relive that, it's just not happening. So personally, I think there might need to be a little bit more changes than what he's trying to do.
Oh, well, it remains to be seen what they look like. And I'm really curious to see how the transfer portal and all that shakes out and who he retains and who he doesn't retain and who they go out and get. Mm-hmm. But it is college basketball. UCLA does have money. UCLA is UCLA. They are in Los Angeles, right? Ask John Foster. They're in LA. Yeah. And they got the ocean and a wonderful campus and lots of beautiful people to walk around and make friends with. So the natural draws are there.
Yeah.
Mick Cronin, once he gets his hooks into guys, seems to inspire loyalty. So let's bank on that and see how they go forward. Mike, I have 2 more basketball questions for you before we end this because we did 45 minutes with Dave Marcus.
Hells yeah.
And it's getting
really
late.
Quickly before your questions, you just
Mike, what?
You just hit on something really quickly that Corey Close just said. She talked about in the post game of Oklahoma State. recruits, elite recruits aren't going to, we had all this gorgeous weather the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Recruits aren't going to Connecticut for the weather. Why are they going there? For the achievement, for the coaching, for the just elite status. That's what UCLA should be. And the weather itself should be
Just additive.
yeah, exactly.
Tiebreaker.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But,
Absolutely.
yeah, sorry. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's why I said like Cronin seems to have his chops, but like we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's had some bad moments this year too. That you don't want to go viral for the bad things.
Yeah.
No, Mike, I do want to zone in on two more things because I am sad to see Bilodeau go. I enjoyed him, and
Right?
go Beavs and all that stuff. What do you think about Bilodeau and probably? I mean, like we were just talking about him as he was the thing that didn't allow them to advance, really.
Yeah.
So they get Bilodeau as a transfer after last year. What do you think of his career as a Bruin, and what do you is he a guy that is going to be in the NBA, or
that's
just going to live off of him being a Bruin, or what do you think?
I think that Tyler.
The way the guy's great, UCLA.
I think
Let's stay with
Tyler
that.
Max Verstappen Bilodeau is God. He looks so. I brought this up to different people, and people are like, "Oh, okay, I see it. Weird." I also think Max Verstappen looks like Mr. Bean, so kind of by correlation. Anyway, I'm off topic again. No, I think he had a really solid career, and this year he showed how productive of a player can be. It's just the overall production of the team has probably limited his stock, which is unfortunate because he's a very serviceable offensive.
He was one of the more efficient offensive guys in the NCAA this year.
Yeah, not
period. End
not
of story.
the greatest defender, but he had highlights here and there.
Pardon the comparison, but he was kind of UCLA's Johnny Juzang this year, right? I mean, going out there lighting it up, not necessarily a defensive plus, but on offense, man, he could cook.
Yeah, but
in a different way. But yeah.
I mean, he was even injured for a spell at the beginning of the season, and he was still went out there and fought. Like this dude was like tough as nails. Like he was probably one of the toughest players since like maybe Lorenzo Mata. Just fighting through injuries and just doing everything he could for the team. So I'm very sad to see him go. I would love to see him for another year, but it is what it is. He came from Oregon State, had a good start, and just really developed into a solid player the last few seasons. So very, very sad to see him go.
And then there was the guy that was supposed to be the guy this year.
Yeah.
And the last number of games notwithstanding, I'm just going to talk about this last tournament game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about the majority of the effing season. And I'm not a guy that generally gets down on dudes, but for all the talk I heard about Donovan Dent this year and what he was supposed to do and what he was supposed to do for the Bruins, like he came into the Big Ten and into UCLA, and I don't know. I mean, we had him for a year, and this is kind of I think this is kind of the cost of having a mercenary for a year. Like they could either galvanize you and like really make hay and be like, wow, this is awesome, like Kevin Love or Johnny or whatever. Johnny was only there for 1 year, right? Wasn't he?
2 years?
Well, he's there 2 years.
2 years.
He really played for 1 year, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever. What I'm saying is the profile of this guy that like steps in and just cooks for you, that's what we thought Donovan Dent was going to be.
Yeah.
Mike, do you think that's what he lived up to? Because I'm underwhelmed, quite frankly.
Very much so. Like the first 2/3, 3/4 of the season, just underwhelming. He had some good games, but didn't really prove himself until the last month. If he would have played that way the entire season, I think this is not just a ranked team, but a team that should probably get to the Elite Eight at
UCLA has a
minimum.
better record, they have a better seed, and they have a better chance of winning and advancing.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate. UCLA did have a good surge late in the season, and and Dent was a good part of it.
Absolutely.
But and it did start right around the time after Mick Cronin's kind of embarrassing Michigan State meltdown. Yeah. So I was thinking about this. I was like, there must have been like a good talk, a good team meeting where they're just like, look, we just got our butts kicked by the Wolverines and the Spartans. What the hell are we going to do the rest of the season? Do we want to go out this way, or are we going to go out swinging? And I think they actually went out swinging, but I think just the way the overall resume of the season.
Did he? That's what I want to know. I mean,
yeah.
geesh.
If scouts can see that Dent can play this way consistently, which wasn't really proven over the season, but it actually had a pretty good resume in the last several games. I don't see why he should be in the NBA. Bilodeau's the same, but I do think that the overall resume and how UCLA has underperformed this year has affected both of their stocks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we barely knew him, for this season, and we wish him well. But now they're gone, right? Bilodeau and Dent are gone. Mike, we'll see how UCLA men's pans out. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to thank Dave Marcus for coming on the show and giving us all that women's basketball talk. But let's get to what's brewing with you.
What's brewing with you? You ask me. What's brewing with me? Yeah. What's brewing with you? What's brewing with me? What's brewing with you?
Mike, what's brewing with you?
Dude, March Madness. It doesn't just it's not limited to basketball. Like, my God, I've been busy and kind of like pulling my hair out. But there's been some good stuff. My kiddos are involved with spring activities. Just over a week ago, my daughter Violet had her dance performance where she performed in 5 different performances. 2 of them. One was a solo, another was a group that she choreographed. Very proud of her. It was an excellent show for her high school. This past Friday, my daughter Poppy had her, I think this is her 3rd year in the school play, in which the school did Clue.
Oh, yeah.
She played Professor Plum.
Nice.
And as sassy as she was perfect for the role, and just absolutely proud of her for doing that. And she had some comedic little jabs in there, and I was just like, okay, I'm like, damn, Poppy, you freaking nailed it. Good job.
Good job, Poppy.
But at the same time, like, that was Friday night. That was literally, I was watching the game on my phone, and there were a couple other parents who were UCLA fans who were coming up to me because they know that I write about UCLA. They're coming, how are the Bruins doing? How are the Bruins doing? Literally, that first round game, that the last 10 minutes of that game lasted a half an hour.
Yeah.
The game ended 2 minutes before the curtain went up.
Wow.
So we're huddled around my phone, going, oh, Bruins. Okay, cool. All right, let's watch this. But yeah, I was very proud of Poppy. But yeah, this past weekend was just busy. Going to the game on Saturday, doing media on Sunday, then back to Pauley for the second round game on Monday. So yeah, very tired, very exhausted. I'm starting to hate March Madness as an entity. But as a basketball tournament, let's go. Jake, what's wrong with you?
I was out in Texas. Like I said, I was out there for the Grizzlies game against the Dallas Defenders. And the Grizzlies so far on the field, we're going to have a very good May, I think. We've already added some players. We're going to have a good game to finish the season. But the first 2 games are pretty rough for your Grizzlies. We've been outscored. Are you ready, Mike?
Oof.
70-0 over 2 games. It's been rough. We've gone into a couple of these games with like a couple spots that were just like woefully undermanned, and it showed. But this is kind of a terrible thing to say, but like, we weren't as bad as those scores, and we'll be better the next time we take the field. But even though the Grizzlies are 0-2 to start the season, I was undefeated in Dallas, and this is one of the I was doing all sorts of stuff. I had my head on a swivel, and I was doing all sorts of work and stuff. But this was like, this sums up my day. Best team dad ever. I was all over the place, filling up water jugs and taking fruit into the stands for our spectators, which I love that they came out there, and driving guys to the airport and doing team logistics and just kind of trying to keep it all together. That's basically what my job is as the general manager of your LA Grizzlies. And today I recruited like 3 more players to hopefully help us have a better game in May. But it was a good trip, and it was highlighted by number 1, 2 wonderful barbecue trips. I'll put a picture of the barbecue, one of the barbecues, up on this episode's title screen.
What kind of barbecue you have?
Well, we went to the 407 Barbecue and Gun Club, and we had brisket and smoked meatloaf and smoked turkey and pulled pork and okra and hot links and
damn, you were all over the place.
Sausage. I mean, Mike barbecues in Texas is barbecue.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
that's why I asked specifically what did you have.
and then we went to Pecan Lodge and in Dallas. So 407 Barbecue and Gun Club is near Denton, where one of my dear friends, Elizabeth Floor, grew up. And Mike, that's the plate that we had. All the food there it was very good.
Damn.
And that was the highlight of my trip because we got to spend some time with a fine young man named Phil, who's an athlete at North Texas. Him and his mom were there. We ate lunch with them. The coaching staff for the Grizzlies coached him in high school, and he led them to a title, which is awesome. Great catching up with him, talking about sports at North Texas. Go Mean Green. And then I went to Pecan Lodge, which is one of Dallas's more famous barbecue joints. Bill and Sarah and I went there after Jerry Neuheisel beat Texas in that game at Jerry Dome way back in the day. And that is some very, very good barbecue as well. We had the brisket and the sausage and the pulled pork and yada, yada, yada there as well. And 407 is probably my favorite barbecue in Texas, but Pecan Lodge is certainly worth its reputation as well. And it was great. And then, but just running around like crazy and being the team dad and the fan dad and all these, just kind of taking care of everybody was my job in Texas. And I did it.
How many days were you there?
I was there from Wednesday night to Sunday.
Okay.
I had to steal a car from Budget, basically. You ever pulled the move where no one's helping you, so you just get into a car with keys in it and drive up to the exit and say, rent this car to me right now?
No, but I will try that next time.
I did it and it worked. And
Really?
it was like 1 a.m. and I was at my wit's end because nobody there other than the wonderful lady at the guard shack was helpful. And so finally I just gave up and I'm like, I'm stealing this car right now. And I got to the exit.
I'm a cop. You're going to give me this car.
Mike, the last thing I'm going to do is play that card. I just used my own powers of persuasion and appealed to her human
decency,
human decency and kindness, and it worked.
Nice. All right.
So I got out of there with a cool Ford van, and I was driving that mother effer the entire time. 2 trips to Buc-ee's, 2 trips to barbecue, multiple trips to the game. Drove the fans to the game, team to the game, all this stuff. We went to Slim Chickens and had a taste test versus Mr. Bojangles Chicken. Bojangles won this time. In Florida, Slim Chickens won. But in Texas, Bojangles won. Went to Whataburger, got a bunch of drinks. Whataburger's.
How was the vegan food in Texas?
Purely Mike, if I told you I didn't eat, I don't think I ate a single vegetable when I was in Texas. And it was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Not a single tomato?
Nope. Just brisket, baby, and sausage.
They used it as garnish, and I just flicked it onto the next table.
I threw it. I said, "Here, pussy, take the salad."
Oh man,
had a lovely time in Texas, Mike. Anyways, that's my What's Brewing. Thank you very much, and Mike, this has been fun.
Yeah,
we got like an hour and a half out of this, so we'll be back next week to talk about the Bruins, the women's Bruin basketball team advancing to the Final Four, I hope. And if they don't, they'll be hell to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then hopefully, I don't know, whatever. I'm ready to blow off Eastern and just go to fucking Phoenix. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Sorry, Mom, but I might be going to Phoenix.
And then spring football comes up soon.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that yet.
Yeah, I know.
Let's stay in the moment.
It's coming up quick.
Let's live in the moment.
Damn.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed Dave Marcus, and I hope you enjoyed Mike. And until next time, Mikey, what do we say?
Go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Oh my God.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rob, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.